Okay.
Oh, we got everybody?
Yeah. Looks
Good.
like we have panelists. So they're about to cut our mics, so we'll just give them a hand.
Yeah.
Let's talk ordinals.
All right, and welcome to the most exciting panel we are having all week, probably in the month, in all of El Salvador. We're going to talk about ordinals and inscriptions, I guess. Maybe I'm Jeff from Fulmo. I'm going to moderate this, and we got 3 people here, and I guess they can introduce themselves. So I'm assuming you all love Bitcoin. But please answer a question. Why do you want to destroy it?
Because we can.
No, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So this is actually like probably a pretty premium panel. I probably have to be the one who's going to hate on ordinals and ask all the hard questions, because these are pros. We got one ordinal developer.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, it's great to ask the difficult questions. That's what we're here for. I think we're also going to structure it in a way, so we're going to talk a little bit, and then at the end we're going to maybe allow some questions from the audience.
Just tell us who you are.
So yeah, first of all, I'm Raph on the internet. I'm Raph Jeff. I'm a Scooby-Doo, and I'm the lead maintainer of Ord at the moment. So I've been working on this with Casey for over a year now. It started just us 2 on Discord, coding away, and then it became really popular, and now this is kind of my full-time occupation, kind of trying to bring the protocol forward and bring adoption not only to ordinals but also to Bitcoin through ordinals and inscriptions.
So how many people are you right now working on the core protocol?
I mean, we're like 3 people, but there's a bunch of contributors. We're trying to like get more people into the code. For example, we've also started live streaming coding sessions, kind of going through the code so that more people. So it's less intimidating for them to kind of join and start coding. But at the moment, we're like 3 people.
All right.
Yeah, cool. My name is Lightrider. I'm very active always in the Bitcoin and Lightning community. And in February this year, I discovered ordinals. And yeah, it really caught my attention. And then I decided to write a simple inscription service. It's called Ordiment. You can just upload any kind of content. And then you pay a Lightning invoice, and then we inscribe it for you and send it to you as an ordinal. And we also built an ordinal web wallet, so you can connect your existing Bitcoin wallet, for example, your Ledger wallet, to our website, and then we teach your wallet how to send and receive ordinals. And yeah, this year we applied also with our idea, with our project for the Wolf Accelerator in New York City. I can highly recommend every one of you to have a look into this project, because it's really nice, this accelerator, and we got accepted. And so yeah, we tinker around and try to build stuff around ordinals and ordinal infrastructure.
Cool. I'm Thomas. First of all, thank you for organizers to having ordinals people in the stage here. I think we are the most controversial topic around. There are no drive chains. I don't believe there is any other weird stuff happening, so yeah, very appreciative of approving this proposition being here. I'm a creator, artist, builder, I don't know, evangelist about ordinals sort of use cases, creative applications, and it's been a few months also for me to experiment and see the protocol grow, change, adapt to existing structures, and it's great to continue exploration in that environment. So thank you for coming.
Okay, so it's kind of important, I guess, to know the audience a bit. Quickly, get up if you know what ordinals are. Stand up just briefly. Okay, so they're seems like a pretty informed audience. You don't have to sit yet. No, so get up again if you think ordinals are controversial from like a personal position. Like, let's say you dislike it for some reason or the other. Maybe if you seem to have read or heard about it a lot. Okay, so there's not as many strong opinions. Okay, thank you. If you're like a super fan of ordinals, could you also stand up if you think that's the hot shit? Okay, so we're like split pretty 50-50, and the grand majority doesn't really care that much. I would like assume from this short show of legs. Okay, all right. So I guess you're mostly familiar with the ordinals, but maybe since we have a dev here, could you briefly explain, especially what are ordinals and what are inscriptions and how do they go together?
Yeah. So.
And you have 10 seconds. Go.
10 seconds. Ordinals are data on chain that you can transfer around. Very 10 seconds. But basically, I need more 10 seconds so that people I can bring them along and so that people understand. But ordinals and inscriptions are two systems. So the first system is this sat tracking system, which tracks or gives every sat a number and then tracks these sats across transactions. So the difficulty with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin does not have any stable identifiers. On Ethereum, you have like accounts, and it's like a stable thing you can attach things to. In Bitcoin, you don't have it. You have UTXOs, which are like created and destroyed with every transaction. And what this SAT tracking enables is the stable identifier across transactions. And the way it works is that it assigns every Satoshi that is mined a number when it is mined. So it is mined when in the subsidy of the Coinbase transaction. And when it's mined, it's assigned a number according to when it was mined. And then this number and the Satoshi can then be tracked, kind of input, first in, first out throughout transactions. So you have the input side, the output side, and then you kind of track them across transactions. So that's the base layer system. It's just assigning, it's a new semantic kind of interpretation of inputs and outputs and Satoshis. And then on top of that, you have inscriptions, which then attaches any piece of data to the Satoshi, and this can then be sent around, and you can, one use case is, of course, monkey JPEGs on the blockchain, but it can be any piece of data. It can be videos, can be text, can be audio, dickbutts, yeah, whatever. So these are the two systems in a very kind of short kind of explanation, and they work together to kind of create this ordinal market and this new adoption and this new kind of shape of what Bitcoin is and what it can enable.
So when you say any piece of data, you mean any piece of data? You could put 1 gigabyte video on the Bitcoin blockchain, or how does it work compared to other systems?
So any piece of data, you can chunk up the data. So I mean, there's some restrictions on Bitcoin, like a Bitcoin block is maximum of 4 megabytes. There's also some standardness rules, but this gets into the technical weeds. But basically, any type of data, like we follow the web model with like a MIME type. So any type, like anything that like a browser can load, you could also like load into Bitcoin. There's somebody inscribed Doom, like this is a small JavaScript kind of game. People have inscribed the Bitcoin white paper, so a PDF. People have inscribed videos. People have inscribed like pictures of interesting things, and so there's literally anything you can.
You need to have the money for it.
Sorry?
You need to have the money for it first,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
So it's very costless for you to inscribe something as a 1 gigabyte of data ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember like one interesting use case was what you were working on, or what was it called? Like the with the elections in Guatemala?
Right, so validating information that's been sort of claimed upon with additional checks by documentation we see. So not only hashes, but actual documents can be put into the chain as an additional tool for preserving information, preserving assumption of truth. But yeah.
So it's like a kind of like you have open timestamps, which only stores the hash, but with ordinals and inscriptions, you can actually store the data on there as well. So it's a kind of a it enables more use cases because you can actually find the data and it's replicated across 40,000 nodes all across the world. So it's a very, very resilient kind of data storage.
Yeah, and that's also the biggest difference from, for example, like it is done on Ethereum. On Ethereum, on other blockchains, the data is always stored off-chain. So you have the data on some server, and this server you can just switch off, or you can also change the data on the server. But Bitcoin, everything is saved on-chain, so it's a very different model.
So while you added, I guess for other explanations, the biggest actual use case right now is BRC20 tokens. What are BRC20 tokens?
Yeah, first of all, I would say this BRC20 tokens are not ordinals. I would not say they are ordinals. They are just how some people use ordinals. BRC20 is a protocol built on top of ordinals. They just use the ability to store data on chain. They just write JSON data into ordinals, and these ordinals are then the BRC20 tokens. But The problem is that the BRC20 token protocol is extremely inefficient and it absolutely can't scale. And there's a lot of, how should I say, speculation around BRC20 tokens at the moment, but I would assume in the long run it's so inefficient. I can't imagine that in 2 or 3 years we will see a lot of BRC20 token action on the chain. I can't imagine, to be honest.
And Bitcoin is finite too, so I suppose the fee market and the fee pressure has to stop at some stage, as if everyone's going to be using Bitcoin in circular economy and saving it, storing it, the speculation of it doesn't have the scalability and the attempt to preserve for a long term.
So I think BRC20s are very so people who do not like ordinals kind of see ordinals and inscriptions the same way I kind of see BRC20s, which work on top of inscriptions. So you kind of have to be honest with yourself that we are doing something that maybe other people don't like, but BRC20 people are doing something that I may not like. But I think both of these things are driving adoption. So BRC20 is driving adoption of inscription and ordinals and inscription is driving adoption of Bitcoin. The trick here, or what we hope to do, is to drive adoption kind of steered in a way which is less benign.
Okay, so how does sort of making it more expensive for financial transaction drive adoption? And maybe somebody else wants
because we have to solve a lot of problems, in my opinion. I mean, we were always aware that one day the fees will go up, because the fees need to go up, in my opinion. And we always postponed to solve these problems when it comes to scalability. And now we have a lot of on-chain fees, and we see, for example, that Lightning in a non-custodial way is very hard to use with this high on-chain fees, because, for example, Phoenix Wallet, you always need now on-chain transactions if you want to do the splice out. Or for example, Moon Wallet, it was a very, or is a very famous Lightning wallet, but under the hood it is an on-chain wallet. And there are also many other companies who always had a business model which is relying on low on-chain fees. But now we have this high on-chain fees, and we see that a lot of problems occur. And that's always how scaling works. You don't start scaling when there's no need to scale, yeah? In 2017 or so, before 2017 we never had high on-chain fees, but then we had high on-chain fees, okay, so we started to create Lightning. Now we have really high on-chain fees again, and we see, okay, we have Lightning, but we have still other problems now, so now is the time to fix these problems, and I think it's very important that we have these problems right now, so that we can start think about how to solve them and how to fix them. And I think that's what adoption drives.
So, I mean, with the discussion about fees, you always have to kind of think about Bitcoin's security budget. So before ordinals, we had fees of maybe 1 sat per vbyte, 2 sat per vbyte. The mempool was empty, where there was empty blocks being mined. This is not a state that Bitcoin should be in. Bitcoin should always have full blocks and should always have a base demand of this block space. So because, as we all know, the subsidy is exponentially decreasing. We have the halvening coming up, so there's less and less Bitcoin that miners kind of receive to secure the network. So you need some other kind of form of revenue that is stable and is there to kind of fund what we need for a security budget. And so we need high fees and sustainably, not only high fees, but we need a full mempool so that there's always kind of transactions to get from and always kind of fees that miners can kind of live from. So having an empty mempool, having low fees should not be the natural state. The natural state should be not ultra high fees, but should be moderate fees with a full mempool always, because that's how kind of Bitcoin long-term kind of holds the network together.
But you cannot control that.
You cannot control that.
You cannot say I want to have medium fees.
No, you cannot control that, but what you want is usage, and what Ordinals and Inscription does is bring usage to Bitcoin. And it's also a usage that is, in a sense, Inscription in itself are kind of a benign usage, because they just store data on chain, and if it gets too expensive, nobody wants to inscribe anymore, and then actual high value transactions will succeed and will get through. But so it's a balancing act. So you want a security budget, but you don't want too high fees. But I think it's better to kind of stress this now and kind of have a high fee environment and see if our scaling solutions work, other than later, 10 years down the road, then everyone's using Bitcoin, and then we're like, oh shit, Lightning doesn't work the way we want to, and we haven't looked into other things. So I think this is a very good, as you said, a very good stress test for Bitcoin to kind of see and test the things that we've built, what the community has built. So I hope kind of yeah, this goes on, and we can see where it goes.
And maybe coming back to BRC20, I think currently there are 80% of all transactions that are happening in the mempools and the blind blocks. Artists and creators aren't happy about them either. The art that you want to put in, the data that you want to store, obviously getting prohibitively expensive. So myself, from this standpoint, I am looking at it as a tool. It's permissionless, it's happening, can't do anything about it. I believe it will end at some stage because speculation is, to an extent, a demand of degeneracy, and it's interesting, it's fascinating but for some people, but the resource is finite. So I think there will be some form of a middle spot where, again, art or freedom of information, be it WikiLeaks, Project Spartacus, or data that could be inscribed from China that we cannot find out about, will be affordable to be put into blockchain again, Bitcoin's blockchain again, to preserve forever as an immutable source of data points.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with BRC20 tokens is also that you see now that there is a demand for fungible tokens on Bitcoin. I mean, we have RGB and Taproot assets now building since 4 years or so to solve this problem, yeah, or to provide fungible tokens on Bitcoin. And the BRC20 guys, they did it in, like, I think they wrote the protocol in 1 day or so, and a lot of people are using it now. So it's not very efficient, but we see that there is a demand for fungible tokens on Bitcoin. So I'm really excited what will happen to RGB or maybe Taproot, because they promised to do the same with Lightning. So that would be very interesting.
So there's two questions that are pretty recent I find kind of interesting regarding BRC20 tokens. There is sort of, if you will, a project that's trying to destroy BRC20 tokens, the way I understand it, and it's called Sophons, based on Xi Jinliu's book, The Three-Body Problem, and it's basically, in the original, it's like little like random particles that fuck up stuff, and human machines don't work anymore. And in the same way, I guess that's why he picked the name. He developed a certain way of messing with BRC20 tokens, and it's kind of funny, but it also requires money to run the system. So right now, if I understand correctly, his like war chest has run dry. But how? Do you want to explain like how the Sophon game works?
I don't think I want to give the explanation. I just want to pinpoint the fact that everyone was celebrating Ordinals are dead, and it was because the software was running and preventing BRC20 transactions from being minted. Maybe Raph or you will take on this.
You can also donate, I think, to the Sophon project. So he will start again to work, and then fees may come down again.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Sophon is, I don't want to get too much into like BRC20 and how Sophon works. Basically, it sees a minting transaction, it pays a higher fee, so it looks in the mempool, pays a higher fee, sets the amount to 0, and then nobody can use that token. That's all it does.
But it looks a little bit like there's, right now the Sophon chest is empty, and like the mempool is getting clogged up again, or the fees are getting higher again because there's thousands of transactions. And once the war chest gets refilled, we might see the overall transaction fee going down again. So that by itself, I think it seems like a pretty new concept to the mempool, or like to the general like Bitcoin transaction fee market, and to see how this like plays out, how you can externally, for now, right now, kind of control the fees by turning on and off this Sophon machine, if you will.
Yeah, and it also shows that the BRC20 protocol is not very efficient, because with a very efficient protocol, you would not be able to stop the protocol working. Yeah, I mean, he's just overriding the deployment transactions from BRC20 tokens.
So, BRC20 aside, you mentioned Project Spartacus, where a lot of the WikiLeaks data is being inscribed in the Bitcoin blockchain. Why
can do it.
What's that?
You can do it as well, right? So no one knows who is inscribing the war logs of the WikiLeaks, Julian Assange reports, but essentially there is at least 300 pages of information regarding the US involvement in the Syria and the wars of Middle East. Is
this necessary, like, are ordinals necessary for that? Because the first sort of inscription already happened, when was that, like 2010 by Dan Kaminsky, I think, the Ben Bernanke face. So
the ASCII art.
What's that? Yeah, the ASCII art. So you can, like, was totally possible before, right?
Yeah, I would say the first inscription was Satoshi himself when he wrote
exactly.
Chancellor on Brink for second bailout into the chain. So he made an inscription before he made his first transaction evenly. So, but yes, you don't need ordinals for that, and also because of Project Spartacus, the case of Julian Assange won't change, but it's just a form of protest, and it's a very effective protest, and it gives a lot of awareness again to the case, and so it just shows that Bitcoin is now also a tool to store data immutably and immutable, and that's something very cool, I think.
I mean, people always wanted to store different kinds of things on blockchain. There's like early Bitcoin core developers, I think Luke Dash Jr., he inscribed, that wasn't called inscribing, like little religious texts. Like there was always a demand to put some data. What we did with ordinals and inscriptions, we just built a cool tool that finds a good place to put it and displays it in nice ways, and that's why I think it has blown up. Like it was always possible, we just figured out a way to make it more efficient and to, and cool tools around it. And now, like there's this whole ecosystem around it. Like there's a lot of developers coming to Bitcoin. There's like, from my perspective, like Bitcoin is not just Bitcoin. It's not like something static. Like there has to be change. There has to be continuous like investment of like mind share into supporting the network, and not only like specifically Bitcoin Core, but all the libraries around it, all the tooling around it. And what like Ordinals is driving is like a lot of developers like coming back to Bitcoin, being able, oh, I can build on this, and then building out new Rust crates or Rust libraries, or building JavaScript libraries so that people can build better wallets. So this has been like an explosion of new interest from the actual, like from the technical community in Bitcoin. And that's for me one of the most exciting things, because I'm a developer. So that's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, like more people getting into Bitcoin from a technical perspective.
I heard from a lot of Ethereum developers who started with Bitcoin and then they went away from Bitcoin because it became for them too boring, and now they are coming back. And the good thing about the Ordinal protocol is also that it's so simple and it's so clean. It's very easy to understand. You can explain it to a developer within 20 minutes and then he or she can start building on it. But for example, with competing protocols like RGB or Taproot Asset, you need so much overhead. For example, to receive a Taproot asset, I need a Bitcoin node, I need on top of that a Lightning node, and then I need this TapD node. And this TapD node is generating a special Taproot address only valid for this one asset. And then you have to sync this TapD client to a universe to get the metadata of this asset. But for an ordinal, to receive an ordinal, I just need a Bitcoin address, nothing more. I can even use a legacy address, which is 10 years old or so. So yeah, it's very easy for developers to get starting with it, and that's why we see so much social impact, why we even see already, I think we have seen now 3 Ordinals conferences already within this year, so that's very hard to rebuild for other projects.
Yeah, so talking about the ecosystem, I guess like the most recent news is that Binance listed Ordinals, and is
much more important, I mean, Ordinals was launched, the fees went up, so since we launched in January 20th or something, we launched, and since then the mempool hasn't cleared, basically. And because of that, Binance integrated Lightning. So Binance now, you can now send with Lightning. They didn't have it
also
before, now they had it.
Coinbase.
So you can literally see how like adoption is being driven by high-fee environment, because Lightning is supposed to be used in a high-fee environment. That was the scaling solution for it. So this is like also another like small data point. Like people have been bugging Binance to integrate Lightning forever, and now they didn't.
And now they had, but they also integrated a trading pair called.
Oh yeah, they also integrated like BRC20, but they also integrated Lightning. You know, so
is that like interest you would say is more for like long-term technical interest, or is it just trying to monetize on the short-term hype?
I mean, exchanges have a clear incentive. Like they just want to trade shitcoins. Like even Lean Kraken makes most of its money through trading some random shitcoins. I mean, that's the incentives of exchanges. You can't really change those. There's an inherent kind of demand for gambling, but part of that, or you direct some of that money, some of the profits from it towards like Bitcoin development and towards Lightning development, then you have like something at least a little bit positive coming out of it. So that's kind of how I see it. It's just like
or just
a little bit of that gambling, that degeneracy being funneled in a nice way towards like actual Bitcoin development.
Yeah, yeah. And just think about the whole year 2021, 2022. It was always cheaper to send $100 via on-chain than via Lightning, because if you have 1 sat per VByte, it's cheaper to send $100. So there is absolutely no need to use Lightning. And also just think about the whole Lightning ecosystem. All the companies how should they raise money for the next round or whatever when nobody's using Lightning because it's cheaper to do it on-chain? And so I think for the Lightning industry, Ordinals are a real blessing.
So I'm going to ask you something. As an artist and creator and evangelist, do you share like the sentiment that a lot of people are coming back to Bitcoin and to do basically NFTs partially? And how does it work? Because as I was like seeing it, a lot of years, kind of non-financial transactions on blockchains were kind of the devil. And now it's all of a sudden happening. Like, how is that like kind of schizophrenia solved, or is it just like sort of splitting the community, or how would you like, how do you perceive that?
Approach that.
And is there a lot of like, and what's the ecosystem like?
Yeah, just to touch base on what you both said, I think Ordinals are accelerating adoption of new technology and technology that is fitting, that is suitable, that has a reason to be. If Moon cannot operate and exist in this fee environment, well, we need to find new ways how to do it. So if Binance and Coinbase is looking into adopting Lightning Network, suppose there was a reason for them, and I think the fee market did so, and Ordinals created that impact as a secondary sort of or tertiary effect. So we are accelerating it. The fact that people from different communities, like Ethereum or Solana, are approaching Bitcoin first now, might be some form of connection to them seeing novel ways to explore this tool. And being at NFT Paris, being at NFT New York, many individuals actually came and talked to me and said, Bitcoin is for old people. It was usually young people, creative people, areas of art and culture. They approach Bitcoin as a sort of a prehistoric artifact. But yeah, it's not.
Okay, so it's the same as for the developer scene, like you would say, like there's a new kind
There's
of,
an overlap, I believe in
and
that
those
way.
are new people, or are they coming
They
back?
never hold Bitcoin. Many individuals that approach me never held Bitcoin, never experienced Bitcoin. They were lured in these approaches of how I can create digital art. How can I create something that can be permissionless? But they were lied to, obviously, because everything was a testnet. Bitcoin is the real mainnet.
And so, but how do you perceive because before, like, from like some parts at least, it was really frowned upon to do like pictures on Bitcoin, pictures on blockchains, and now we have pictures on Bitcoin.
Ultimately, I think it's all positive. Controversy, challenging the status quo, the narratives. There is a reason because a lot of people here invested time, their precious time and energy into monetary adoption, the first primitive of Bitcoin, which is sound money that we, I believe, all inherently believe in. However, there is way more beyond that. I think the chain itself is adaptable to both preserving free information or information that instead would be sort of looked as illegal, or art, a fine art that is expensive or prohibitively expensive to put into the chain, but since it exists there, you are with higher certainty approaching it's going to last forever. So yeah.
We've also designed kind of Ordinals in a way, or at least the reference implementation in a way that it tries to further the core tenets of what it means to be a Bitcoiner. For example, one of it is like run your own node, validate your own transactions. So if you want to run Ord, you have to run Bitcoin Core, you have to be a full participant of the network, and then you can like kind of inscribe and do stuff. And I think in the first couple months, we have like a Discord, and then there was a tech support channel there. We helped only in the Discord, I think 5,000 people to like start up nodes and run nodes. So we've added 5,000 nodes to the network, which of course increased the health of the network and kind of also kind of teaches people how to interact with Bitcoin. So it is designed in a way that very much tries to be very close to what the values of Bitcoiners are. And my role and our role is to kind of funnel that and kind of keep the core philosophy all right and on track. But yeah.
So I mean, this is a lot of different pieces, but going back to Project Spartacus, where where there's like WikiLeaks files on being inscribed, is it also being used for fundraising? Because you could, in my understanding, sell the individual files to people while still having it documented on the Bitcoin blockchain, so serving two purposes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But for that reason, it's that you are actually supporting the vision of freedom of information and the immutability of certain information, which are those logs.
But is that being done, or is it just being inscribed and not traded?
Well, if you inscribe one, you can maybe list it and trade it. There are several marketplaces that can do that, but you can also do this permissionlessly. The pre-signed Bitcoin transactions exchanging UTXO for a different UTXO, you can move your Spartacus, Project Spartacus mint for someone else's UTXO value as without an intermediary.
All right. I think prior to doing this, we kind of agreed to open up to questions because we've been doing like kind of a wild ride and trying to like make sense of everything a little bit. So now is probably a good time to just like give, if you have any questions, there's one in front and there's one in the back. And okay, there's somebody with a mic coming around. I see there's some questions. So we're going to use the rest of the time for some questions. Oh, sorry, we're running out of mics. Okay.
I think over here, like here in the front. She was first. You're there first.
Hi, thank you. I am not a techie, okay? I'm an artist, and I've made a big, huge mosaic for El Salvador. I haven't sold yet.
Can you hold it closer to you?
Oh, I haven't sold this huge mosaic. And several people have said, oh, you've got to make an ordinal or an NFT. And I'm like, oh, God. So I read enough to know enough to be here. But I'm a big fan of Max and Stacy, and I had heard them say that it was blocking things on the blockchain, and they were bad. So I thought, oh, no. I don't want to be a bad actor. I don't want to be that person. And it's sounding like I don't have to worry about that now. And something you said about, I never heard of this.
Well, you don't have to, you can worry about it, but I wouldn't take anybody's word for it. Kill your heroes. You don't have to listen to Max and Stacy, and you don't have to listen to these guys. It's just getting more information.
Don't trust, verify.
Yeah, you said something about something where it sounded like I could pay to have you do it for me.
Yeah, that's what he does.
That's what we do. Yeah, we can talk after the
okay.
panel, yeah.
So that's huge for me. Thank you so much.
It's called inscription services. So there's like, if you don't want to, like, I'm the ordinal self-sovereign maxi. I have my own node. I run my own thing. So it takes a little bit of setup, but you can also use inscription services that will do it for you.
Thank you.
And you just give it an address of your wallet, and then it works. Yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah,
Okay.
just talk to him, and then maybe
We take like, oh wow, this is a lot of questions. So we can like take two. If we speed up, it's like 2 or 3 more.
We can also make them line up in the middle.
Yeah, it's fine. He can walk around.
Hello. What are some, like practically, what are some advantages and disadvantages to something like open timestamps? I understand it has to do with the exchange of it, but what about in terms of having data live on the blockchain, whatever that means, versus hashing it? What are the advantages practically?
So hashing just proves that something has existed before, and open timestamps is a very scalable system. It it combines hash into one Merkle tree and then just puts the first the top level thing on chain. But somebody has to provide that document so you can check. So if somebody gives you a document, you can hash it yourself and then compare that hash to what is on chain and be like, oh, okay, so this must have been this must have existed before. But still somebody has to kind of make this document available. Whereas with ordinals or with inscriptions, this data is actually on chain. So you can like look it up and it's right there, all of the detail is completely there. So that's kind of the good thing about that.
Thanks. Let's give one question. Does anybody have a question for Thomas? Just to make it a bit more.
I mean, that's what we have tried to.
Wait for the question.
I just wanted to touch base on that.
I'm not sure who this question is for, but you mentioned that the Moon wallet is not so efficient anymore, and I experienced that earlier today. I paid like about 10,000 sats for a transaction on using a Moon wallet. I was just curious, why is that?
The question is, why is Moon wallet not working anymore in a high fee environment?
I think, Lightrider, you described it quite well, that ultimately they're on-chain wallet, right? So every Lightning transaction that happens behind that is submarine swap, if I'm not mistaken. So always on-chain footprint, and if the fee market is high, as it's currently 100 sats per VByte, it's economically unfeasible to use the wallet.
This is why we're stress testing it, you know? Some models just don't work, and you have to stress test it and then filter out what doesn't work. And obviously Moon doesn't. I don't know, maybe it does, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, there were business models built on zero fee transactions.
Zero
fee, or low fee, like 1 zero. There was a time when you could send a Bitcoin transaction with 0 webyte and it would get confirmed. So that obviously didn't work out in the long run, but sorry, one more question.
Next
Yeah,
question.
I had a question. So I think you mentioned there were a few. Hi. You mentioned there were a few things that people are using ordinals for now that might not last the test of time. Like they're either a beta test or an early iteration of something. Like BRC20 has like a scaling problem. Are there any things that use cases for ordinals that you think are not being done today that might be done in 10 years from now? Maybe it needs some new BIP or something to be able to be done, or maybe there's just a community that doesn't exist yet. But use cases that we should look out for in the future of ordinals.
Maybe from the artistic side, generative art. So briefly mentioned the recursion system, so adding JavaScript libraries and leveraging existing data that is in the structure of blockchain, Bitcoin's blockchain, for creating new complex art that would be prohibitively expensive to inscribe, but because of existing data that is already on chain, we can curate and build very complex structures of artistic sort of solutions for people to admire.
All right, we're out of time. I guess you can find these guys and have more questions and conversations about everything we said. Thank you very much for giving us like the roundup of the world of ordinals and taking us sort of on a quick deep dive, I would say. And enjoy the conference. Have fun. Thank you.